Good day, dear students. In today's class, we're going to be looking at a newspaper report. And if we read the title itself, we know that this particular newspaper report is about some kind of an accident because we've got miners that are killed. So let's read on further to find out what kind of an accident this is about and what actually happened. When we look at the line below the title, we've got the place where this accident takes place, that is Asansol. That's a place in West Bengal. And we also have the date, that is the 27th of January. Let's start with the lesson or the report. 14 of the 41 bodies of miners who died after being trapped inside the New Kenda colliery near here were brought out of the mine till this afternoon, while search operations were continuing for the third day today to locate more bodies, Coal India Limited CIL sources said, reports PTI. So what we have here is a lot of details. First of all, we've got that there are 41 bodies of miners, and we know that obviously they are dead. And they are dead inside the New Kenda colliery. What's a colliery? A colliery is basically a coal mine near here, that is in Asansol. And out of the 41 bodies of miners that died, only 14 were brought out of the mine till this afternoon. That is the afternoon of 27th of January, because that is when the report has been written. So only 14 of the 41 bodies have been found. Okay, while search operations were continuing for the third day today to locate more bodies. So the search operation is on while the newspaper report is being written. That is what we know. And who has given us this information, or what is the source of this particular information? The source is Coal India Limited. So Coal India Limited is basically a major mining company in India. It is one of the biggest basically, and this Coal India Limited owns the New Kenda colliery. That's the reason why they, as the supervisors or the owners of this particular mine, give out reports about the numbers of casualty and how many bodies have been recovered. All right. So Coal India Coal India Limited sources gave out that report to Press Trust of India, PTI. And what is PTI? PTI is basically a news agency that gives out reports to different newspapers. Okay, so Coal India Limited is the owner of the New Kenda colliery, and they gave information about what happened in their mine to Press Trust of India. And what Press Trust of India does, it takes it and it sells the news to other leading newspapers or magazines or to the radio or to the news channels. That is what Press Trust of India does. Press Trust of India is not the only news agency, but it is one of the oldest and one of the most reputed news agencies in India. All right, so that is what we have in the first paragraph. Now we move on with the newspaper report. It says, after 43 rescue teams working underground, several were engaged in lifting the bodies to the surface, and some had fanned out inside the mine to locate the missing. Now this is interesting. What we have here is that we are told that there are 43 rescue teams. So this is a major search operation for trying to find the bodies, and more importantly trying to see if by any chance any of the miners survived. Are they trapped inside, or are they all dead? Or even if they are dead, they have to manage to remove the body out, right? So they have the miners who are working in full swing trying to get the bodies out. So we have 43 rescue teams working underground. They had gone underground, that is because the mine is underground, and several of these teams were engaged in lifting the bodies to the surface. So from down the pit, they lift the body right up to the ground level. Okay, because we know that mining areas are usually underground, right? And some of these rescue teams had fanned out inside the mine to locate the missing. So while some of the rescue teams were removing the bodies out and bringing it on top, others were still going inside the mine to see if there are any other dead bodies to be found, because not all the dead bodies were found when the incident was reported. So they're still searching for the bodies of the miners, and more importantly, to see if anybody, by some miraculous reason, has survived the entire incident. The sources reiterated that only 14 bodies had been lifted to the surface. Now, we're talking about sources in the sense the Coal India Limited sources, because they are the ones that were in charge of the mine and they are responsible for whatever happens in the mine. So they are the ones who know exactly what is going on, because obviously they are in charge. So they reiterated means they've restated, they said it again, that only 14 bodies have been lifted to the surface. So they're trying to say that Coal India sources have twice said that only 14 bodies have been lifted. Now the question is, why do we have this particular bit of information in the newspaper? Then we go on further. The report explains that when asked about reports in Evening News that all 55 bodies had been recovered, the Coal India Limited control room sources said it is not at all true. Now that is the reason why this particular report has carried that sort of information, saying that the Coal India limited sources have said that only 14 bodies have been found, and they've said it again and again that this is the latest update they have had on the situation. Only 14 bodies have been found, and the remaining. So the question is now, which is true? Is Coal India right in whatever claims it is making, or are the eveningers right? And what do we mean by eveningers? Eveningers are basically evening newspapers. We know that. Most newspapers that we have, they are printed in the morning and then they are sent out, and what happens is it is usually the previous day's news that is printed overnight, and the next morning it is distributed to people. Whereas eveningers are different, because eveningers are usually printed in the evening, and it has the news about what has happened during that particular day. So for example, if we were to have an eveninger, we would we would print the newspaper today evening, and we would talk about something that happened maybe in the afternoon. Okay, so one more thing, evening is usually deal with breaking news, something that has just happened, something that's big. But again, since there's a very little time to verify that news, chances are high that what the news that is reported in evening is may not be true. It could be unverified news, it could be rumors as well. All right, so in this particular case, it clearly seems to be a rumor, because Coal India Limited, which is the in charge there, the company that owns the New Kenda colliery, they know what is going on inside the mine and the search operations, and they have clearly said again and again that only 14 bodies have been found. Okay, whereas here they are saying, in the evening, as they are saying that all 55 bodies, as it is, they have mentioned earlier that there are no 55 bodies, it is only 41 bodies, and out of those 41 bodies only 14 have been found. So it's completely a different piece of information that the eveningers have provided. But what we know from verified sources is that what the news that the eveningers have provided is not at all true. All right, so we move on to, and that is what this particular report clarifies, that there is a rumor, but the news is not true. Then the newspaper report goes on to say that 27 bodies were being taken to the pit bottom to bring them to the surface one by one in the mine cage, the sources said. Now this is very interesting. Just remember that at the start of the report they said that only 14 bodies have been recovered. Now when we talk about 14 bodies being recovered, we're talking about 14 bodies being removed from under the mine, or the underground area, and being brought to the surface, the land surface, right? So now what this particular paragraph is saying is that 27 bodies were being taken to the pit bottom to bring them to the surface one by one. That means down in the mining pit, or in the mining area, there were 27 bodies collected, but they were still down, they were not rescued and brought up as yet. Okay, so the CIL sources even said that only 14 bodies have been brought out, but 27 are still down, and they are in the process of being brought up with the help of a mine cage. Now what is a mine cage? Something very simple. It's a mechanism to be able to transport, because we know mines are deep down, so you can't keep coming up every now and then. If you want water, if you want a light or some, any equipment that you may need, you can't keep coming all the way up, because that'll be a waste of time. So they have a mining cage, which is a cage first of all to bring miners from top to right down, or even any equipment that they may need. Either you can bring it from the ground level to the underground level, or from the underground level to the ground level. You can use it both ways. So at this particular moment, they don't have equipment, they just have dead bodies that they have to transport from below the pit to the ground level or the surface level. Right. So at the moment, that work is going on while the report is being written. That work is still going on. They're still in the process of bringing the 27 recovered bodies from the bottom of the mine to the surface. All right. Now we come to a very interesting paragraph, and which is kind of the paragraph which answers a lot of our questions. How did the miners die? Okay, so this paragraph goes on to say, referring to the cause of the death, they said, they means the sources, the Coal India Limited sources. Okay, they said the miners either died from lack of oxygen while trying to escape from the mine when the fire broke out on Tuesday evening, about 150 feet from the pit bottom, or from inhalation of poisonous gases like carbon monoxide, or a combination of both. Now, this is very interesting, but again, a lot of details crammed into one small paragraph. It says here, first of all, the cause of the death is there was a fire. There was a fire that broke out 150 feet away from the pit bottom. Okay, the pit bottom is where the bodies are now kept. It is the entry source at the bottom of the pit. Okay, so 150 feet away from that entry source underground, the fire took place. How the fire broke out, nobody knows. We are just told that there was a fire that broke out on Tuesday, a little away from the entry point in the underground pit. Okay, and the people, the miners that were there, they got stuck in there because of the fire. They could not move out. Okay, so what happened is that they died. They were trying to escape, but they died while trying to escape. And how did they die? Either they died because there was no proper oxygen, or and it was suffocating inside because there was a huge fire, so they could not breathe properly, no proper oxygen, so they died. Or they died because they inhaled poisonous gases like carbon monoxide. And how did that poisonous gas of carbon monoxide reach down there? Is simply because of the smoke. If a fire breaks out and there is a smoke, okay, then carbon monoxide is produced. Now, carbon monoxide is not too harmful, but in this particular case, it became poisonous, it became harmful because it was an enclosed space. And the fire must have grown to a great extent, so that must have increased the concentration of carbon monoxide down in the pit. And that led to the death of the miners. Okay, so it's interesting to know that how did the miners die? They died either because they could not receive oxygen, or because they inhaled carbon monoxide, which is poisonous and which was present there in large quantities, or a combination of both. It could mean that they did not have oxygen. Instead of breathing oxygen, they instead breathed the poisonous gas of carbon monoxide. So it is not, at that moment, it could be either of the three options, but it is not clear how they actually died. One of the three options could be the case. All right. And in the last paragraph, we have the bodies recovered did not bear any injury mark. Now, this is a very important statement. It seems like a very irrelevant statement, but if you look deeper, they are trying to tell you that this was clearly an accident. They are trying to rule out any case of foul play. They are trying to say that, okay, nobody did this on purpose. Nobody was conspiring to kill these miners or to cause this accident. Because if they were conspiring in any way, there could have been some injury mark or anything like that. Somebody could have purposely done it. Okay, but this does not seem to be the case, at least because there is no injury mark. So it's more probable that it was because of the poisonous gases that they've inhaled. But again, not too sure. Okay, so all they know is that no injury marks, so nobody has attacked the miners. They have died of other causes. So the newspaper report goes on to say all 14 bodies had been sent to the Kala hospital for post-mortem examination, which would determine the exact cause of death. So it ends on a very nice note saying that there are many possibilities, but one thing we know is that nobody attacked them. Okay, but how they actually died, there are three suggestions, but we will come to know about it only after the post-mortem examination is done. Okay, so the 14 bodies that are now brought to the surface, that is how the report had started basically. So the 14 bodies that have been recovered, those have already been sent to the Kala hospital. It's a hospital nearby for post-mortem examination, because they really want to know what happened and how did this miners die, because it is not a joke when an accident like that happens and so many innocent miners have lost their lives. All right, so they need, as an organization, especially Coal India Limited, needs to get to the bottom of the case to understand what went wrong, how the fire broke out, how did the miners die, to make sure that something like that doesn't happen in the future. Right, so the report is a very decent one. It gives you a lot of information, a lot of details, and it is packed in a very concise form, and it takes very little space in the newspaper. And yes, that is it for 41 miners killed in Bengal. Thank you, students.